as head of Rage Against the Media, the question that I would ask, I'd ask people to close their eyes for a second. I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a second and imagine what the world would be like if our education system actually took its charter seriously and educated our kids. Imagine how far we are from that. How painful that is. These are our children who entrust us, families entrust us, society entrusts us with the education of these kids. And the thievery that's going on kills me. I'm a parent. I have 2 daughters. I'm also a teacher. I spend all day, every day in the classroom. I see what's going on, and it destroys me. My dissertation, I'm Dr. Sigmund, right? My dissertation was on young adult literature. This is 10 years ago. The stuff that was in the books that English teachers and school librarians were handing out to children so that they will read. Content didn't matter. It's all about sort of the eyeball exercise, whether or not it was pornography. And Rebecca and I were talking. There were phrases in books given to students that I would not say in public. And to write a letter to the editor with those passages that are in books given to kids they wouldn't publish because it's obscene. It's pornography, and this is what they do. Every totalitarian regime knows, how do you take over? You get to them through the kids. And education is one of the most important forces of the long march through the institutions, what the left decided to do because the workers of the world weren't uniting. They were being happy, fat, successful capitalists. They weren't uniting. So they decided we would go through the institutions, the main one of which is education. This is fundamental. So when I heard of Rebecca Friedrichs and the work that she's done to save education, to save our kids, both fighting the unions and speaking out about the garbage that's in our schools, I knew we had to have her. So without further ado, please welcome Rebecca Friedrichs.
So it's really great to be here tonight. I have taught 28 years in California public schools, kindergarten through 4th grade, and tried to make a difference in the unions from within. I served as a union leader trying to make a difference. That was like banging my head against the wall. And took the California Teachers Association and the National Education Association to court. And our case went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. That was Friedrichs versus California Teachers Association. And our case was heard January 2016, and 1 month later, Justice Scalia died. And so we ended up with a 4-4 tie. Our goal was to free all public sector employees from forced unionization. So we lost, but Mark Janis, I always say I fumbled on the 1-yard line. Mark recovered my fumble and ran it for a touchdown. And as gracious as God is, Mark Janis won his case on my birthday. Wow. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So, which I predicted and wrote in my book before it happened. Wow. Yeah, because I had asked God if he would do that. And so he said yes. So you can hear more about that in my book, which we'll talk about later. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about a very difficult topic. It's difficult for me to share. I always keep a glass of water with me because I get very upset. My mouth gets dry. I'll turn red and get hot because I would never, ever speak this way in mixed company if I had a choice. But I don't have a choice. So I will get started. Something called Comprehensive Sexuality Education, or CSE, has been invading our schools here in California, around the country, and in fact, in many countries around the world. It has been pushed through the United Nations now for about 20 years. Poor countries come and say, we need clean water, we're starving, and the United Nations will say, sure, we'll help you as long as you'll put CSE into your country. And many of these countries are now saying, whoa, this is destroying our children. So this is a serious problem. It's not just here in California, but tonight my talk will focus mostly on California because that's where we live. That's the fight we're in. CSE, including new gender identity requirements, became law in California in January 2016 as part of AB 329, the California Healthy Youth Act. Yes, the trouble is there's nothing healthy about it. I'd like to share with you some of the contents of the new sex ed curriculums invading our schools. I apologize in advance to you for what I'm about to share, but I feel morally obligated to inform you so that you can help to protect all of our children and our families and our teachers. These are some highlights directly out of my book. In 2013, a parent from Northern California sent me an email titled, "The Latest Horror." She shared a curriculum that was used in her daughter's 5th grade classroom. It was written by Planned Parenthood. It's called Making Proud Choices. It's still one of only 6 curriculums approved by the state of California under the new California Healthy Youth Act, and all of these types of curriculums are being pushed across the country. The first thing this mother pointed out to me was a lesson called the Condom Relay Races. 11-year-olds. I read the entire teacher's manual and I felt sexually violated while reading it. In the Condom Relay Races, the teacher is instructed to teach the children how to use condoms using her arm. She is told to demonstrate the use of condoms. She is told to teach the children all of the steps involved in using a condom. She is then told to divide the children into 2 teams in mixed company, boys and girls together, 11 years old. The teacher is instructed to bring out 2 anatomically correct, fully erect adult male penis models and to place them on the table in front of the 11-year-olds in mixed company. The children are then told that each child will run to the penis and that they will place the condom on the penis and they will tell all the steps involved in using a condom, and if they get any steps wrong, the teacher is instructed to tell the child they have to repeat the steps. Once the child gets it right, the child's supposed to run back to the next teammate, give them a high five, because now it's that child's turn to go be abused and to place the condom on the penis model. The teacher is literally told in the curriculum, make it a fun game. My first instinct when I read this is child abuse. And any child forced to touch and even look at a fully erect adult male penis model would be mortified, disgusted, and traumatized for life. The initial page of the teacher's manual would give a person the idea that the program simply focuses on preventing sexually transmitted diseases, AIDS, and unplanned pregnancies, which, by the way, as a mother and teacher, I would like to say, is inappropriate for 11-year-olds. But as soon as you turn the page in this curriculum, the overt sexual indoctrination of children begins. Even the rules, which are to be posted throughout the 8 weeks of lessons, are a form of indoctrination that could lead to the abuse of children. The second rule, quote, "Don't yuck my yum. Wow." End quote. Here's what it states, quote, "If someone feels the need to make a noise about a specific thing, which may be a sexual activity, we say, wow. We don't say, ew, because we don't want to say anything bad about something someone else likes. This would take away the safe space of the classroom, and not everyone would feel comfortable sharing." End quote. Safe space? Are they kidding me? There is nothing safe about these lessons for the children or the teachers. The curriculum then states, quote, proud and responsible behavior includes protecting yourself by using a condom when you have sex. By sex, we mean vaginal, anal or oral sex, VAO. They casually refer to VAO in every single lesson. Children are taught to protect themselves using a dental dam or a condom. Dental dams were designed for oral surgery, but our schools now think that it's a good idea to teach little children to use dental dams during oral to anal sex. This is an outrage. So, one other thing I just want you to know, that teachers are told that they have to instruct the children on how and where to find birth control and obtain birth control, including the morning after pill and abortions, without parental knowledge or parental permission from age 12. Those are little children. How dare they? This is what's going on in California schools and around the country. And I'm going to talk to you tonight about who's pushing it and what can you do to stop it. Because we are going to stop this. We're not going to let this go on. God help us. So comprehensive sexuality education, CSE, was brought into our schools through the California Healthy Youth Act. The California Healthy Youth Act was sponsored by the ACLU of California, California Latinas for Reproductive Justice, Forward Together, whose mission statement reads, all of this is in my book, so you don't have to take notes, you just buy my book. Forward Together, whose mission statement reads, quote, a multiracial organization that works together with community leaders and organizations to transform culture and policy to catalyze social change. It was also brought in through Equality California and Planned Parenthood affiliates of California. Now, I'd like to show you the coalition of supporters, which is even more shocking. And this is where most people are unaware. So the coalition of supporters who agree with bringing this sort of what I call SeXXX Ed into our schools, the California School Boards Association, the California Teachers Association, and the California Parent Teachers Association, the PTA. Why would a school boards association, a teacher association, and a parent association whose goal is to protect children be behind this sort of abusive sexual indoctrination of children? Well, that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. All of these organizations, school boards and PTA, have been bullied and abused by state and national teachers unions. And they've all been caving. And all these folks surrounding our classroom are all indoctrinated and in on it. They've all been bullied to the point that they're not protecting the kids anymore. The kids are getting injured. If you don't believe me, here's a letter from the ACLU. It talks about the sexual health implementation of the California Healthy Youth Act, and it tells you when it took effect and all of that, and that it is mandatory for students in middle school and high school. Generally, it's 7th grade and 9th grade, but the school can teach it anytime they want. Here's the rest of the letter from the ACLU, just in case you don't believe me, where they tell you it was enacted last year with the support of the California School Boards Association, the California State Parent Teacher Association, and the California Teachers Association, among others. So, part of the law that the teachers' unions and their friends in the legislature were sure to include is that parents can only opt out. Sounds familiar, like the unions. You can only opt out, right? So the opt-out. Parents receive a letter. The letter might be buried in a stack of letters at the beginning of the school year. It might come home from the child. How often do we miss a letter from our child? All the time. And these letters are innocuous. They basically say, you know, it's going to be comprehensive sexuality education. Well, we think it's the birds and the bees, right? So most parents they either don't see it or they don't think there's a problem, so they don't sign it. If the parent doesn't sign the opt-out letter, the child is automatically placed in these classes. So children who are in schools that have comprehensive sexuality education have already been abused. Now, here's what's really troubling about this law. The law specifically states, I know there's some school board members in here tonight, good people. The law states that these school board members and school districts cannot have a parent night, show them every single thing that's in the curriculum, show them, you know, what I just read to you about the anal and oral sex and all that stuff. Cannot just tell the parents everything and then let them opt in. Say, hey, let's make the parents opt in instead of opt out. Well, why not? Why would they write the law that way? Because they know all of us would not opt in. Nobody wants this education. I've spoken to people who are Democrats, Republicans, apolitical, atheists, Jewish, Christian, every religion you can think of. Nobody wants this sex ed in their schools because it's inappropriate. It's child abuse. Now, here's the real scary part. The part that's gender identity, where they're teaching our children that we no longer are just a boy or a girl, and when you're born, your parents just assign a sex to you, and that there's 70 some odd genders, and all this confusion. When we attack someone's identity like that, it's highly destructive. Highly destructive. Not only that, it's an attack on every religion on the planet to attack our identity like that. But that part, the gender identity, parents cannot opt out of that at all if it's taught outside of the sex ed class. So parents can only opt out of the sex ed class portion. If the kindergarten teacher, like what happened in Rockland, California, in kindergarten, teacher chose to read a book, I Am Jazz, about a child becoming who's a transgender or changed genders. And she read it to the kindergartners. Little boy went into the bathroom, changed, came out a girl. All the kids were traumatized. The teacher told them, you need to start calling him or her and all that stuff. And the parents complained, and the district said, too bad. You don't have any rights here because of the California Healthy Youth Act. You can't opt out of that. This is happening in preschool all the way up. We need to fight, people. I have some teacher friends who have been fighting this for decades at the National Education Association. So it's not just California. This is coming out of the teachers' unions. And I'm going to show you some highlights and explain some stuff to you. But I first want you to know that there are some brave teachers, a couple dozen, who have been serving at the National Education Association for decades trying to fight this stuff. Do you know what happens to them when they dare to speak out?
They get fired.
Well, they can't get fired because they don't get paid. But this is a volunteer position at serving. They get shouted down. They get booed off the platform. They're trying to walk back and they get blocked. They've been spit upon. And they've been told, there's a special place in hell for people like you. That's how the teachers union treats loving teachers who care about the kids. It's the teachers unions. It's not the teachers. There's a few activist teachers. The unions have been planting them in our schools for decades. They put them out in the front, screaming and yelling. That is not teachers. Teachers love the children. Teachers go every day and give their all. Teachers would never teach these lessons to children, ever. So we need to stand with the real teachers and stand against the teachers' unions. And I'll prove it to you about the teachers' unions now. So every year, the National Education Association has something called the Representative Assembly. So teachers are voted from each district, and they're a representative of their local chapter. And they come to this annual meeting, Representative Assembly. And at the Representative Assembly, new business items are passed every year, usually about 150 or more new business items. And every single teacher pays for this representative assembly and these new business items. And whatever passes, this is how the union is going to lobby for teachers. This is what they're going to do, whatever passes at the NEARA. So I'm going to go over some slides of how I know the teachers' unions are the ones pushing and funding the SeXXX Ed, the sex ed that's all over our country. So this is NEA Resolution B53 from their resolutions book, Sex Education. I won't read the whole thing to you, but I'd like you to see the highlighted part. Teachers and health professionals must be qualified to teach in this area and must be legally protected from censorship and lawsuits. Why would they put that in there? Why would they put that in there? Unless they knew we would want to sue them over what they're teaching. The qualified to teach portion in the law here in California, if a teacher says, I'm not going to teach that, no way. Well, that's okay. The law states that then the experts will come in and teach your children. The Planned Parenthood will come in and teach the lessons. So teachers can be protected. They can get out of it, but then the children get abused worse. This is the rest of more of B53. It's actually a very long resolution. I want to point out to you this part, diversity of culture and diversity of sexual orientation and gender identity. The reason I want to point that out is because this is their big push. This is what they're really trying to get into our schools. And I'm going to show you some more stuff later that'll help you to understand that. Okay. B53, here's some more. We're supposed to teach age appropriate. That stuff I told you about in the curriculum sound age appropriate to you? No way. It wasn't even appropriate for a drunken frat party. How about medically accurate? Teaching children to have anal sex with a condom, is that safe? The CDC has not approved any condom for anal sex because it's so highly dangerous and you're going to get HIV. Or very high percentage of people get HIV from anal sex with a condom. Yet our schools are teaching our children to do that? They belong in jail. It's not medically accurate. It's child abuse. It's medical abuse. So it has to be age-appropriate, medically accurate information, including lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning, LGBTQ issues. This should include, but not be limited to information on sexuality, sexual orientation, and gender expression. Very important to them. So NEA, New Business Item 155 in 2017, read this way. NEA will use existing media to publicize school districts implementing inclusive sex education curriculum that reflects the beliefs of NEA B53. That's what we just read. Sex education, Part B, diversity of culture and diversity of sexual orientation and gender identity. Remember I told you that's real important? So they're publicizing school districts that do this well. Well, here's an award for you. Doing a good job here. Keep it up. This is what the unions are about. My question is, what does this have to do with representing me as a teacher? I thought they were a labor union. I thought their job was to get me a break or a higher pay or something like that, even though I don't agree with what they do on those things. What does this have to do with a labor union? Why are they telling us what to teach our children? And why are they bringing sexually explicit information into our classrooms and undermining parental authority? How dare they? And they do it with my money, behind my back and against my will. Thank you, Jenny. And they do that, to all teachers. Teachers have no idea. This is why I wrote my book, Standing Up to Goliath, because Goliath is the state and national teachers' unions in this country. And teachers are funding them hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And they have no idea. I sit in the lounge and listen to teachers horrified about the sex ed lessons. Oh my gosh, I heard about that coming. Oh my, oh my. They have no idea they're the ones paying for it. So we have to educate teachers so they'll stop paying for it so we can stop this madness. This is my friend Barb Amadon right here. And I usually show a video, but we can't get it to work right. So Barb has been a teacher for years in Washington State. She's retired now, but she's still fighting. She's in my book. She dared to start looking into what the unions were doing with our money. She started looking through microfiche at their records, and she discovered that the unions had made a $210,000 donation of teacher dues monies to their PAC, and then they forgave the debt. And so when she found that, she said, bingo, I can sue them. So she took it to some labor attorney, and she took a case. This was years ago. And then she and her friends started a newsletter for teachers. They just wanted teachers to know. They just wanted to educate teachers. If teachers knew this, and she started to recognize the resolutions. I just read you a few resolutions. She started going through the document and discovered that the teachers union was taking positions on euthanasia, Planned Parenthood and abortion, nuclear war, all kinds of stuff. So she starts writing this newsletter with her friend to educate teachers. You want to know what happened to her and her friend? Teachers union sued her with her own dues. Sued her for daring to tell teachers what they're really paying for through their dues.
On what ground?
They sued her because their newsletter was called, it was the Washington Education Association, WEA. They called their newsletter the WEA something something newsletter, sued them for using their letters. They lost. The unions lost. But it was still a nightmare for these two teachers. They thought, well, I'm going to lose my home. This is what the unions do. They bully everyone. They harass you. They have billions, so they just sue you. That's what they do. They sue for fun. And they know that the rest of us don't have the money or the know-how or the attorneys or the savvy or whatever to fight them, so they just bully everybody. So I'm going to go over some more new business items with you, just so you can see what the unions are up to. So this is new business item 30. You'll notice it was adopted, 2017 NEA Rep Assembly, in partnership with the Southern Poverty Law Center, NAACP, ACLU, GELSON, that's Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, National Center for Trans Equality Human Rights Campaign, the Human Rights Campaign, that's what they're involved in, and any other legal and human rights groups of related concerns. NEA will track incidents of discrimination. Note these terms, because the teachers' unions make up all these terms, and they write the talking points for the far left portion of the Democrat Party. Incidences of discrimination, racism, homophobia, and transphobia, as well as anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all other forms of religious discrimination. I thought their sex ed was religious discrimination. And bigotry in our public schools. The data will be shared with districts to educate and eradicate hate through the development of programs that include, but are not limited to, training on unconscious bias, culturally responsive instruction, and the Anti-Defamation League. That cost teachers $60 grand. Why in the world is a teacher union hanging out with the Southern Poverty Law Center? About 1 month after this business item passed, the Southern Poverty Law Center came out with their map of hate groups. 954 hate groups. This is their homepage. I think they have 1,000 something now. But if you go on their website, Southern Poverty Law Center, and you look right here, sort by the different types of groups that they call hate groups, you will discover that most of the groups are Christian, Catholic, Jewish, conservative. They're good, godly people who are just, you guys are on there. Are you on their hate group? Congratulations to you. Yeah, yes. And Dennis Prager's on there too. God bless him. So if you're on this list, you're likely a great person who's fighting for religious liberties. So my question for teachers is, did you know 75% of the teachers I know are people of faith? Yes, of course. I worked with them for 28 years. They love the kids. They go to synagogue. They go to church. These are people of faith. Do they know that they are funding Southern Poverty Law Center and standing in solidarity with a group that puts a young man with a middle finger sticking up? I mean, it's offensive. We would never teach anything like this in our classrooms, ever. And if our students behaved this way, we would not put up with it. Here's another one for you. New business item 46, adopted in 2017. NEA will develop an online toolkit to assist communities and educators in combating the insidious hate speech and actions of white supremacists, nationalists, and the so-called alt-right. We're the alt-right. I'm a Christian, and I don't hide it. I love Jesus Christ, and I'm grateful to him for my salvation. I am alt-right hater because of that, according to my teachers union that I was forced to pay for 28 years. The toolkit will identify the groups behind the propaganda and provide counter-messaging and techniques to help protect our students and educators and our communities. That costs teachers 40 grand. It's ridiculous. New business item 36, adopted. NEA shall, using existing digital media, post a list of known individuals with businesses who are committed to refusing services to same-sex couples and or LGBTQ individuals. NEA can access a list of these individuals and their businesses from organizations such as Think Progress, Southern Poverty Law Center, Human Rights Campaign, and share it with state and local affiliates. Do teachers know that we are the reason that the Masterpiece Cake Shop gentleman owner was attacked? It's the teachers unions. Every time you turn around, every time you flip on your television and you watch people attack Judge Kavanaugh, a good, godly, kind man, it's the teachers unions behind that too. Every time you turn on your TV, every one of these problems, it's the teachers union. I've got more for you. NEA, new business item 86, passed in 2017. Oh, this one in particular is kind of special to me. So Larry and I have a good friend who served at the NEA-RA. Actually, we have several good friends who served at the NEA-RA. And those friends, because of the horrific bullying of anyone who's conservative or a person of faith or who dares to stand up in protection of childhood innocence, because of that, they decided to start some caucuses and to have some expo booths at the NEA Rep Assembly every year. One of their caucuses is the NEA Ex-Gay Educators Caucus, because the NEA bullies ex-gays. The teachers union bullies ex-gays. How dare they? Ex-gays are people who should be loved and cared for, just like everyone else on this planet. Every single human, no matter what their choices or behavior, every single person deserves to be loved. How dare they bully my ex-gay friend, who's a teacher, who went up and told her story in defense of children? They bullied her. So she started an ex-gay educators caucus. They also started a Creation Truth outreach, because the teachers unions are rewriting the scientific method, and they only teach evolution as truth and everything else as a fairy tale. And then the creation science educators, they did the same thing to defend just any other idea than what the teachers unions are pushing. They should have the right to do that. Here's how the unions treat them. In 2017, they wrote this new business item, and it was adopted. For the 2018 Rep Assembly, NEA will thoroughly review and evaluate RA exhibitors' materials for information that is offensive, obscene, or in bad taste. Did you know that Christian truth, Christian science, and being an ex-gay is offensive, obscene, or in bad taste? Again, how dare they? Based on the findings of the review, the NEA will enforce its standing rules, I can barely see that, 12B and whatever it is, as they relate to exhibitors found in violation of the aforementioned rules. Because of concerns brought by 2017 RA delegates, special scrutiny will be made to the following exhibitors. I love it. I heard someone say how many? Probably 1, 2. Exactly. And these teachers, who I know personally, there's a couple dozen of them, bravest people I've ever met in my life, they go back every year to the NEA Representative Assembly to be booed off the platform, to be spit upon, to be called all kinds of names. Year after year after year. And then they're, told that they're offensive, obscene, or in bad taste. And I want to point something out. A couple months ago, the Harvest Crusade was in town. And Pastor Greg Laurie had a big billboard out at Fashion Island. Did you see the messaging against it? Said it was offensive, obscene, and in bad taste. I wonder who wrote the talking points against Pastor Greg Laurie. I'd put money on it. It was the teachers' unions, because they write the talking points for the far left. How do I know that? Because I have personally been in teacher union meetings, and so have my dozens of friends, year after year, 30 years, sitting there in these state and national union meetings, and we hear these talking points, these horrible things, and then a couple months later they come out in the news in the form of Democrat talking points. Far left. I'm not talking about decent, kind Democrats. I'm the ones that are far left. Okay. All right. Now, do you remember here in California, AB 2943 trying to make it so that it's illegal for someone who has same-sex attraction and they want to just go to their pastor and get some counseling? They wanted to make it illegal. You can't have a personal desire to want to change. That's illegal to some of our legislators. Why? Because those legislators here in California are all funded by the teachers' unions who are behind this agenda. So here's what the teachers' unions adopted. Business item 121. Using existing resources, NEA will release a public statement in opposition to conversion therapy, reparative therapy, reorientation, or any other process to alter a student's orientation or identity. At this point in California, if you are a foster parent and you have a foster child who is like wants some help with same-sex attraction, you're not allowed to get that help for the child. But you are allowed to give that child pills to change their sex. Actually, you're forced to do it. You're forced to do it. Who's behind that? The state and national teachers unions. It's really important that we understand the difference, too. It's not the local teacher organization. This is the trouble that most people don't understand. They tell teachers, your union's doing this bad stuff, and teachers get defensive, right? Here's why. They like their local. Their local association is their friends, is the teachers they teach with. And the unions have so corrupted our schools and school boards and administration that they're all terrified. They know they need to stand together. So they want to stay together. But teachers are starting to see that the state and national are spending all our money on politics, and they resent that. So it's really important when you talk to a teacher to say, hey, I get it that you like your local. Good for you. But your state and national? Let's talk. And then they'll listen to you. And I'll teach you at the end how to help teachers with that. This particular item, was it this one? Yeah. This particular item, my dozens of friends I was talking about, they actually went up and filled out a card so that they could speak on this item. And do you know that the president of the NEA and others, leaders in the NEA, blocked those teachers from speaking out against this? So it's supposed to be one person speaks for it, one against, one for, one against, one for, one against, and then you vote on it. Well, everybody only spoke against it because my teacher friends who stayed all week just to speak out against this item were never heard. They were blocked and silenced. And the president of the NEA said, oh, I see what you're doing here. She let it happen because this is their agenda, to stop people from having freedom and to live their way. Now, here's a little bit more evidence. This is the California Teachers Association website, and I just want to show you this area that is highlighted for you so you can understand what they're behind. In August, Governor Jerry Brown signed AB 1266 into law. This groundbreaking legislation will allow transgender students in public schools to participate fully in all school activities, sports teams, and programs that match their gender identity beginning January 1st. Transgender students will also be entitled to use restrooms and locker rooms of the gender they identify with, regardless of the gender on their birth records. I know very few people who agree with that, but the teachers' unions used my money to pass that law. The law, the first of its kind in the U.S., was introduced by State Assembly member Tom Amiano, Democrat, San Francisco, several teacher and parent organizations, including the California State PTA and California Teachers Association, supported it. Why would the PTA support a boy coming into the girls' bathroom or the girls' locker room or vice versa? It's not safe. Funded by NEA? I don't know, but CTA supported it. The teachers' unions are behind it. Because that's their agenda and that's what they want. Yeah.
Why the PTA?
Why the PTA? Yeah. You can learn that in my book. I have a whole...
Give us a short answer.
I have a whole chapter on that. The PTA has been bullied into submission. Yeah. The state and national PTA have been bullied into submission by the unions. Local PTA parents and leaders have no idea.
So they're a feckless organization.
Right. Yep.
Is there any way that we could organize and bully back?
You're going to learn that at the end of my presentation, Ginny. Thanks for setting me up. Okay. So this is a California Educator magazine. Every teacher funds this. Even when I was a non-member fee payer, I funded this magazine. Remember, they really are into the gender identity. This is a girl who doesn't know her identity. That's why she's a puzzle. Embracing the gender spectrum, and they list even the pronouns that we're supposed to call people if they're not a male or female. There's all these different pronouns they've made up. So this is all the teachers' unions too. Now, just so you can see that the state and national teachers' unions are not only behind the sex ed, the offensive sex ed, they are behind literally almost every divisive, angry issue in this country and literally the destruction of Judeo-Christian values. So I'm just going to show you a couple of highlights, okay? This is new business item 37, adopted 2017. The NEA will publish an article that documents the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy in 1893. The prolonged illegal occupation of the United States in the Hawaiian Kingdom and the harmful effects that this occupation has had on the Hawaiian people and resources of the land. Who's behind rewriting our history? Who's behind attacking American exceptionalism? Who's behind, saying that everything about America is bad? The state and national teachers' unions. That's who's behind it. That's how it's getting in. Think about it. If you wanted to undermine a country or bring harm, you would get yourself into the schools, into the educational system, into the textbooks. Okay, here's another one. Number 78, 2017, adopted. Using existing research and available resources, the NEA shall do the following. Publish an article in NEA Today on the racist origins of standardized testing. Did you know it was racist to take a standardized test? That's a stretch. Business item 20, adopted. The NEARA directs NEA to support in ways it finds appropriate and within the budget the removal of R-Skins, Braves, Indians, and Warriors mascots and the imagery associated with each from public schools. Who's behind attacking our team names and our mascots? The state and national teachers' unions. Why? Why are they doing this? Yikes. If you don't believe me, all you have to do is go to NEA.org. You want to go to this specific page, and you go to the business items, and you just open it up, and you can see all their new business items. You can see resolutions. You can see amendments. If you're not a teacher, or you're like me, you aren't a union member, you can't see as much. But if you have a friend who's a teacher who's in the union paying those dues, put those dues to work and get in there and find out more information. You can find out more if you have access. Now, the unions gave us a gift this year. They had their NEA Representative Assembly in Minneapolis, and I went to Minnesota this summer to check it out. I didn't go inside, but I met with those dozens of wonderful teachers, and we just did a lot of work and interviews and stuff like that while we were there. But the gift they gave us is it was the first time ever that they live streamed the entire event. So people who haven't believed me about what's really going on in there got to see it for themselves. I'll never forget my friend. She's watching the live stream and she goes, oh my gosh, they're voting. And I said, what are they doing? She said, they're screaming, and whoever screams the loudest wins. But the NEA claims on their website and in their statements to be the world's largest democratic deliberative body. That's a sham. There's nothing democratic about it, especially if you don't agree with their agenda. So here's some pictures for you. You're not going to believe this one. So the NEA gave its highest award this year, July 2018, the President's Award, to Colin Kaepernick. And during the national anthem, this is the president of the California Teachers Association, Eric Hines, took a knee during the national anthem. So who's behind the Take a Knee movement? The state and national teachers unions with teacher money. So have you noticed how when they push something, these folks, it becomes a household word overnight? They get these, they can get their movements out there really fast. Why? Because they have a lot of money. Where do they get their money? They take it from teachers and other school employees and school board members and PTA and all this money that they're really stealing from us because they're claiming to use it for our representation. And this does not represent my values. I started my classroom for 28 years. I started every single day with the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. And my students stood for the national anthem proudly, patriotic. And I'm sure you would too, but this is how I'm represented, by people taking a knee. The greatest country. Okay, so they started in Minnesota, Minneapolis. The NEA, what are they best at? Protests. They're really good at protests. They help organize all kinds of protests, guys. My union dues have funded advertising for Black Lives Matter, for the Occupy Wall Street, for Antifa, for the Women's March. They claim that it's really easy to put together a huge protest. They claim that if you put out a note on Facebook, then all of a sudden there's going to be this big protest. That's a lie. If I put out a note today on Facebook and said, everybody show up for a protest, it'd be me and my husband and a couple other people, if we fed them. The unions are experts. Okay, everybody worries about George Soros. He gives a lot of money. He does. But he doesn't know how to organize everybody. Who's organizing them? You get an A+ back there. Okay, so they started their NEA rep assembly. The day they all arrived, what did they do? They had protests through the streets of Minneapolis, and of course shut down the traffic, and of course that cost the taxpayers a lot of money, and of course the teachers' unions never pay them back, and they should. Here's their protest. Did you know that teachers believe in sanctuary cities? Support that, push that, lobby for sanctuary cities? Do teachers know that? Here we are CTA, California Teachers Association. We were there protesting in support of sanctuary cities. In fact, I could have shown you one of the NEA new business items that tells teachers that we are supposed to disobey ICE agents if they come to our schools. So now they're telling us to disobey the law. I thought teachers were supposed to teach children to be obedient. Okay, this one's going to really get you. So the NEA Rep Assembly opened its 2018, their program with a speaker. Now, in my opinion, that speaker should be an amazing teacher. It's a teachers association. Well, their opening speaker was none other than David Hogg. Student voice of March for Our Lives. Why? Because the messaging is that he started this movement as a kid, but the truth is the teachers union started this movement of, look, one kid can't get every school in America to take a 17 minutes of silence and to march out of the classroom protesting guns. A kid cannot make that happen. Teachers' unions can. The state and national teachers' unions were behind that movement, that gun protest movement. Our son is a college student. He started a Young Americans for Freedom chapter because he's so sick and tired of all of these attacks on his beliefs. And he and his friends had a counter protest that day, pro-guns. And he told me that a bunch of students came up to them and said, you know, we agree with you. We agree in the right to bear arms. We agree with the Second Amendment. We think this march is crazy. And my son asked him, well, why are you out here? And these were the answers he got. My professor said we had to come out. Yeah. Or my professor said I'd get extra credit. Yeah, nice, right. They robbed every single student across the country. Here's more of their protest. Abolish ICE. And this is really lovely, just what I want to teach my students. This young lady flipping off President Trump. Very nice, very, very classy. So, did you know that it's the unions that have been behind the attacks on President Trump, on trying to get him out of office? The attacks on Kavanaugh, the attacks on Secretary DeVos, all of it. The day President Trump was, what do you call it when they're signed in? What's that day? Inauguration. Thank you. The day he was inaugurated. The unions encouraged children to leave class. Oh, their parents had to take them and protest. I want to tell you something. I've taught 28 years. There were oftentimes presidents that I hadn't voted for and didn't agree with their policies, but not once did I say anything negative about them to my students. I taught them to respect the office. That's what you are supposed to teach children. How dare they teach children to protest against a president? How dare they? It's totally inappropriate. These unions don't belong in our schools. We need to get them out. We know who's behind it, that kind of coalition with the teachers' unions. But who voted for it? Who in the world would vote for that kind of a law? Not letting parents have the right to see it first and opt in. Not letting parents opt out of the gender identity. Teaching children oral to anal sex. Teaching them how to use all the stuff. I only told you some highlights of the stuff that's in that curriculum. In my book, I have 3 full chapters on the SeXXX Ed. 3. And teacher testimonies on what they've seen and what they've been taught they're supposed to do and will not do. So, yeah, abortions at 12 without parental knowledge. That is lifetime damaging. Lifetime. Not to mention a life is lost. So let's take a look here at who voted for AB 329 here in California. State legislators who voted for AB 329 allowing offensive sex ed, 76 Democrats and 1 Republican. That was Rocky Chavez. CTA endorses and supports Democrats who push for the sex ed and abortion. They only support people who agree with abortion. Progressive, all progressive. Progressive's a great word, and they've twisted it. So I don't like calling it progressive, but that's what they... I know, right. That's why I say far left. Okay, legislators who voted against AB 329 and the offensive sex ed, 32 Republicans and 0 Democrats. Many are harassed and bullied by the CTA. I've had many tell me that the unions and the LGBT caucus are so incredibly cruel to them all the time in the legislature. The governor who signed this offensive sex ed into law was Governor Jerry Brown, Democrat, supported by the CTA, and the candidate for governor right now who vows to protect the sex ed is Gavin Newsom, a Democrat. He received $1.3 million from the CTA alone just for the primary this year. I don't know what he's received since then. So, now, what can we do about this? I want to show you a little bit about how teacher dues work. And I want to tell you a little bit about teachers, too. When teachers are exposed to what's in these curriculums, when I show them or I talk to them, they're horrified. I have not met one teacher who agrees with this nightmare. Not one. But here's what they do. They go for the training. They're told you need to teach your students how to use an insertive condom and all this crazy stuff. And they go, wah, huh? And where do they go running? To their union. Help us, union, help us. Well, their local union typically helps them because that's their teacher friends and colleagues who are also mortified. Oh, no, the kids cannot see this. And so the teachers think that their union is protecting them. And they have no idea that it's their state and national union that's pushing it, that snuck it into their school, snuck it in. You'll find that in my book too. It's often snuck in because most school boards don't want to pass this either. So teachers are literally the proverbial hen running to the fox. And so we need to help teachers to understand that. And by the way, if districts refuse to implement comprehensive sexuality education, the ACLU steps in and starts threatening them. That's happening all around our state. So I know if you're a teacher here or you know a teacher, I know it's scary to stand up to the unions. I know it's awful to hear about all of this, but it's really time for teachers to take action. I tell teachers can save America. Yes. All we got to do is reject those unions. That's all we've got to do. Stand together and reject them. I'll teach you how to do that in a minute. So here's how teacher dues are dispersed. This is average now. Some teachers pay $1,500 a year. Some pay $1,200, all different. So I just rounded it to $1,000. So an average California teacher would pay dues of $1,000 a year. Automatically, CTA, the state, gets $700. Automatically, NEA, the national, gets $192. They're getting that from every state. It's a lot of money. So the local in this situation would keep only $108. But the local does all the work. The local does all the bargaining. The local sticks up for you if someone, if you're falsely accused or whatever. So what the heck? The local should be getting all the money. So I'm trying to help teachers and others to understand that, look, teachers, if you just had your local, you could pay a whole lot less money. Quit paying this money. You could save automatically $892 a year. And you wouldn't have to pay for politics and all this other stuff, attacking your faith, attacking your country, attacking your beliefs. So this is abusing children. Thank you. What can we do? Somebody asked earlier, does the Janice case help? Well, the answer is yes and no. Let's take a look at opt-out. So thanks to that Janice win on my birthday, now you all know my birthday, you can send me a nice flowers or something next year. Just kidding. But although I would love it. But anyway, thanks to that ruling, Janice versus AFSCME, teachers are now free to opt out of unions and pay them nothing. Zero. Zilch. Here's the problem. If you're a teacher and you pay nothing, okay, I was a teacher, a non-member, paying the fees. And my fees were like $700-something a year as a non-member. My husband's fees were $1,200 a year as a non-member professor. Okay? Crazy. All that money that they stole from us. We were called free riders, paying that kind of money. We were called freeloaders. We were called pawns of the wealthy 1%, all kinds of stuff. Well, now teachers pay nothing. They're really called free riders. Oh, that teacher over there pays nothing. Because of that teacher, we have to raise your dues. Because of that teacher, so what the unions do is they turn teachers against each other. And teachers fall for it all the time. It's our job to re-educate teachers. I talk about that in my book too, through story. My whole book is story. It's stories of teachers, so it's very heart-grabbing. It's engaging. It's not a white paper. It's and it'll capture the hearts of teachers because they're teacher stories and parents and kids. So the problem is we pay them nothing, but unions still have exclusive bargaining privileges because they insist on them. So when the unions were put together, I call it the unholy Trinity. The unions come together like this. And they have three corners, the local, the state, the national. You are in all three. You cannot break out of one or two. You either are in all three or you're out of all three. Well, why did they do that? Because they know teachers like their local. So now all these teachers stay in the union because they like their local and they appreciate being, having someone stick up for them when there's a corrupt administrator or whatever. But they're stuck with the state and the national and paying all that money for politics. So here's my plan. I call it Keep Your Local. It's one of my programs. I've traveled around the country and I've talked to thousands of teachers. And thousands of teachers, independent of each other, have asked me the exact same question. Is there a way I can keep my local and get rid of the state and national? They all want it. Even teachers who were non-members before, non-member fee payers like me, really preferred to have be in their local. Why? Because if you're not in your local, it's like you're not in the clique. You're an outsider, right? Human nature. They want to be in the clique. So here's what I propose we teach teachers. How to keep your local. Here's how it works. I put 51% because that's easier to remember, but it's really 50% plus one more teacher. But 51 is close enough. If 51% of teachers in a bargaining unit can vote to decertify that entire web, that three-part unholy trinity of union representation, they're out. That's a decertification or a disaffiliation. We need labor lawyers to help us with that. Then teachers can reorganize in local-only associations, saving hundreds of dollars a year, supporting their local only, and giving nothing to politics. Maybe they spend $300 a year. They can still hire an attorney. They can still hire lobbyists, whatever they think they need. And there are many organizations available to help and provide liability insurance, like Christian Educators, Association of American Educators. They provide teachers liability insurance for a fraction of the cost that the unions charge, and it's double the coverage, $2 million a year. So we can help teachers break out. I say, teachers, you can have your cake and eat it too. Okay? How are we going to do that? How are we going to get this message to teachers? This is my #1 program, Adopt a Teacher. Simple. Teachers have been abused and deceived. And deceit runs deep. And we've been deceived for 50 years. That's a long time to believe a lie. It's going to take a lot of work to re-educate teachers and to help them through the deceit. They're not going to learn it just from, a video on YouTube or something. We have got to get in relationship with these teachers. Every single person knows a teacher, either in your neighborhood, your church. Sorry for you if they're in your family. I drive my husband crazy. He says I treat him like a third grader. I really don't mean to. It's just that I taught third graders for a long time. And he's kind of sweet like them. But hey, it's a compliment, Charles. Anyway, I digress. Sorry if you're stuck with a teacher in your family like me. Anyway, the point is we all know a teacher, or a lot of them. We need to adopt them. They have been lied to so constantly by messaging that is clever and crafty, and the unions have so much money and they own a lot of the media. And look, these teachers are isolated. The unions have monopoly control over their email and over their physical mailboxes at work. I can't go slide in a flyer and teach them the truth. We need to help them. So we adopt a teacher and we employ the 6 E's. This is all part of my book. So you have to use the book, Standing Up to Goliath, because that's how you're going to educate them, because it's full of all the stories and all the stuff I taught you tonight. So you embrace your teacher, or many. You educate them by giving them your copy of the book. You don't even have to buy an extra one. Just share it. Enlighten them. Then it's very important that you empathize with them and grieve. Because, I spoke last week to a group, and there was a teacher in the back, and she was bawling because she didn't know she was funding all this stuff.
Where was this?
In Newport Beach. Wow. Yeah, she was grieving. She needs to be hugged on and loved and told, hey, it's okay, you didn't know. Now let's do something about it. They need to be encouraged because they're going to be beat up. Teachers don't want to listen. You're a free rider. It's going to take a while. So encourage, and then we empower them. And we have to stand with them for the long haul. The only way they're going to stand together and decertify the unions is if we stand with them. And if we do, I'm telling you, I know teachers. I know them well. I know their hearts. They will decertify if we stand with them. It's going to take time. So just fill that out. And then, so my book, Standing Up to Goliath, the subtitle, Battling State and National Teachers Unions for the Heart and Soul of Our Kids and Country, is on pre-order right now. So I want to talk to you about that a little bit. A lot of people are, I'll wait till your book comes out. Well, pre-sales are really important. Amazon has taken over the publishing world. My publisher doesn't have control. We didn't even have control over the price. Amazon sets everything. And the only way I'm going to be able to get this message out to the national audience, getting on shows like Tucker, and a lot of these folks interviewed me during my lawsuit. So hopefully they'll remember that this is that teacher who's fighting, and hopefully they'll have me on. But I got to have high sales to get their attention. If I've only sold a couple hundred books, they're not going to pay attention to me. So pre-sales are super, super important. So if you can help me, if you believe in what I'm doing, if you want to save teachers and stop the horrific sex ed, then you can go on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com and order a copy of Standing Up to Goliath. And I told Karen that I would absolutely love, since I live in Southern California, at some point later to come back and sign books. I'd be happy to do that. And then I wanted to tell you about an organization I've also started. I started going around and pitching all these ideas to all different organizations, and there just really wasn't anybody who could see the vision because they weren't teachers. They just didn't understand teachers. So I prayed about it, and my poor husband, I thought, well, I guess we have to start our own organization. Oh, it's been a lot of work. So we started an organization called For Kids and Country. And we call it that because this organization is not about who we are, and it's not about what we're against. It's about who we're for. And we're for the kids, and we're for the country. And we believe that state and national teachers unions are bringing great harm to our kids and great harm to our country and to teachers. And so that's why we've named it that. And the reason I put this slide up is I'm hoping you'll follow me on social media. So we're on Facebook and Twitter. That's our handle there. We're on Instagram. That's our handle there. And then this is our website. We did a little Facebook Live tonight on this talk. The part where I was telling you about what's in the curriculum, the juicy stuff, it's on Facebook Live. Already 265 views. Yeah.